From the abdominal, anxiety-inducing apparition known as the ghost pepper to the death dealer of taste buds, the Carolina Reaper. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm extra spicy Jason Burns.
And I'm super spicy Danny Nucci. And this is the What About podcast. What is a ghost pepper? I've always wondered. I look at my some crushed red pepper. I got this crushed red pepper, like fancy crushed red pepper my buddy sent me. Mm-hmm. What is a ghost pepper?
It's like they have that like meter of what's the hottest pepper based on I guess the seed, I think it is, not the flesh, the seed. Mm-hmm. And ghost pepper is one of the highest ones up there. I think the Carolina Reaper is the second hottest, and then there's one called the X pepper, which just sound made up to me, so I didn't even include it in there. It's like the dirty
this doesn't
pepper.
Exist. The white whale of peppers, is that what that was?
What a treat though to be able to get my first experience of getting a package of hot sauce in the mail as a nice surprise.
Was so cool. And I was reticent. I'm like, rock and roll hot sauce. Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, this is like a promotional thing. And God damn it, if I just did not just start putting it on everything. I absolutely loved it. And again, the one that comes out later, it was the one that I really was just like, wow. I mean, they're all great. And what's really cool is how they found the right guy. They found the right rock and roll guy in the right band for hot sauces, which is hilarious.
We literally always go back to this, which is people we talk to are so passionate about the one thing they love. And what's so cool is that obviously Barry Kerch loves drumming, but he fucking loves hot sauce. Like he just loves hot sauce.
Did you see when he started talking about it at the end and he starts saying that, listen, these are some recipes that I wrote myself. I'm like, yes. Bro, I'm sure he slaved over those.
He's all in.
Which, is great. I mean, he's a hell of a drummer too. Let's not kid ourselves. So without further ado, the badass drumming, hot sauce eating Barry Kerch from Shinedown.
Barry Kerch from the band Shinedown, thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Where are we looking at you? It looks like you got some collectibles behind you. What do you got there?
Yeah, this is in my studio, so I've got some collectibles and some of my old Modern Drummer magazines and things like that, and some music books, but I tend to collect skulls mostly, so up at the top you can see a bunch of skulls over my shoulder.
Hold on.
I've always liked skull art.
Hold on. Where do you pick up these skulls?
It depends.
Well, I just want to I appreciate that. Like, are they like artistic skulls or like garage sales or specific
Most of them are artistic skulls that are gifts and things like that.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So Barry, you got the Modern Drummer magazines. What was it like when you arrived in Modern Drummer magazine as a reader? That had to be exciting.
It was a huge honor. I mean, I've been subscribing to Modern Drummer since the early '80s. And to finally be part of that and be part of that community is amazing, because there's so many great drummers out there. Just to even get noticed as somebody was kind of neat. It really was.
Well, we want to learn a little bit about you, Barry, before we jump into the topic, which is hot sauce. We know you started playing drums at an early age. What is the earliest memory that you have with sticks in your hand?
With sticks in my hand would probably be my 7th birthday when I got my first snare drum and a pair of sticks, and it was one of those little elementary school kits where everything comes together, getting that from my parents and my grandmother.
Did they run out of gift ideas? I mean, what were they thinking?
I think they're just gluttons for punishment, to be honest.
I had a pink drum set for my kid, and she loved it, but it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine when they're like, and you never think it's going to stick. Look at you now, Modern Drummer. It's stuck.
Yeah. Who would have thought about it?
Did you start playing in high school?
I played all the way from elementary school through my first couple years of college in the school type of system. And then after that, started creating bands and playing in bands. And, I've been playing my whole life. It's just, I got the bug and it stuck with me. I loved it. I loved the marching band and the school stuff. And I also like just playing rock and roll.
Did you get when I first started playing drums,
in middle school?
When I first started playing drums, Barry, I got the pad. Did you have to start out on the pad?
The snare drum came with the practice pad, and when Dad came home from work and was ready to watch the news, the practice pad came out. But other than that, it was full volume.
So when you were in middle school or high school, you just played in the school setting, and this Colorado, I'm assuming, yes, or was this Florida?
This was Florida. So I was born in Colorado, and that was at the Air Force Academy. I've been in Florida since I was 4 or 5 years old. So it was in Florida where I started drumming.
Okay, so Florida's home. This is where you grew up. Yeah, so you were in the school, but you in high school there wasn't like a couple dudes or gals that were like, let's play some music.
Not with people at my school, but I had friends outside of school that I played with, and we had a small little cover band that we did, and then I had a little jazz band that we could play in a couple
Oh,
bars.
you did. So you were playing outside of.
Yeah, my mom was my best roadie because I was too young to play the bars, but she would get me in.
So what kind of stuff were you guys playing? What kind of covers were you doing?
It was mostly like alternative of the time, so it'd have been like REM and party songs. You know, I grew up in Panama City, Florida, and that was the height of MTV Spring Break, so I was playing whatever the cool party songs were that time.
And you grew up in the 80s, Barry, and that was a good decade to sort of fall in love with drumming because MTV spotlighted a lot of them. Tommy Lee, Lars, Rick Allen. Did that help you sort of find the cool in drumming that suddenly here were these like personalities doing it too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I had their posters on my wall. You know, I had Nico McBrain, I had Alex Van Halen, of course, Tommy Lee, you know, the consummate showman. I was in awe of all those guys and the fact that they could have long hair. My father being military, long hair wasn't exactly allowed at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah.
That was the dream. And look at me now. I've got way too much hair and my dad still loves me. So we're good.
Well, being a military guy, the drums were a part of the military, right? I mean, they have been since Civil War times.
Absolutely. And before even the Revolutionary War, you know, there's a company called Noble and Cooley Drums that is still in existence today, still building drums and drum sets that built drums for the Revolutionary War for the U.S. Army.
Wow. So you played in other bands before Shinedown, Barry, as you just were talking about. Looking back, did any of those bands have potential to break out, given maybe if it was a different time or a different focus?
I think if they had the potential, they would have. There was one band that I played with. It was a female-fronted band. It was the Amy Steinberg Band, and she's still out there singing. And it was kind of that time period where Lilith Fair was really big and that singer-songwriter stuff, and she played piano and sang. And she has an amazing voice and was an amazing talent. So that almost, I think, had the opportunity. But again, maybe it was personalities. Maybe it was just not the right time or the right people that she got in front of. But I had fun making a record with her and played a lot of fun shows. But yeah, I think, you know, Shinedown has that extra thing, and that's why we've stuck around. You know, those other bands just didn't have whatever that it is.
Are you, or were you at any point a collector of drums? Because you talked a little bit about the history of the Revolutionary War drums. Like, is that part of who Barry was and is now?
I am a ridiculous drum collector. It's a problem where if I bring another snare drum home for in front of my wife, I think she might divorce me. Yeah, I'm a big collector of drums. I've got drums over my shoulder right over here from the 20s all the way up through modern time. I love it, especially snare drums. That's the signature really that you collect as a drummer. I have kits as well, but the snare drum is really the thing with a drum set that you collect, and they all have these different tones and different things. So yeah, I've got a problem with drums.
Is it something you search out, or you're just on the road on tour and you see a music shop, you stop in and you're like, oh, I gotta have that? Or are you on eBay? Are you on eBay, Barry?
I'm not an eBayer. No, I never trust it. I'm always shopping. I like to find the local mom and pops, or you know, even every once in a while you'll find a score at a pawn shop or something like that. But recently I was in Nashville, went to Forks Drum Closet, which is a famous drum store, and they had a Noble and Cooley drum that I was looking for. I was like, cool, I want to get that. And as I was checking out, I look over and up on this huge shelf, and there's this 80s Gresh Tony Williams yellow, which Tony Williams was a famous jazz drummer, and it was in his color, not his sizes. It was in rock sizes, but it was in bags. I'm like, oh, that's weird. What's the story behind that kit? And the guy goes, that's in the original bags. It's never been opened.
Wow.
And I went, are you kidding me? That's the original Gresh bags tied, and it's actually behind me over my shoulder here.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
So I didn't pass that deal up. That one came home with me.
Did you ship? Like, where do you keep all this? Did you ship it? I mean, like, what do you, like, you have a storage closet? I mean, obviously this is in your studio, but like, where do you keep, drums are not easily stored.
They are not. I do have a storage unit for the run over of the ridiculousness of my habit. But if I turn this right here,
my, look at that.
And it keeps going for the whole length of this room. So it's a problem. And then also at Eric, my bass player's studio, which is where we do a lot of our recording, he's got quite a few of my kits and snare drums as well. So when I go up there to record, we have the best of both worlds. So I'll bring, maybe sometimes I switch things out, but
Why do you record there? Does he have the engineer, or does he engineer, or how to? Is it just a better, more conducive space?
Well, his is more of a proper studio. This is more of a project studio where I can demo stuff out of, but it doesn't have quite the, I haven't mathematically measured these walls and made them exactly acoustically perfect like you'd want in a professional studio. So we do it up there, and he really spent a lot of time. Before Eric even joined the band, he was a producer, so he's very knowledgeable. He does have his engineer that he works with, but he also engineers. And, up through the last record, we had Doug McKean as our engineer as well, who's done everything from Green Day to My Chemical Romance to Dave Matthews Band. He's done everybody. Unfortunately, he passed away after making the last record with us. So this record will be different, and he'll be sorely missed. But the engineer is important, because when the producer's thinking in producer brain, he's coming up with ideas and, okay, maybe we want to capture this sound, and there has to be that workflow. The engineer is going, oh, crap, let me get these mics ready. Let me get these things plugged in. That's their job.
For those who don't know what a snare drum can do, right? They hear it in every song they listen to. But how can all of those different snare drums have different sound to you, the drummer? Like, what do you notice that we don't?
I want to amend that question a little bit, Bear, because I want to know, do you still get to pick the snare sound after all this time? Do you get the final word on the snare sound?
No, I wouldn't say it's a final word. It's an agreement. I get to pick it. We find the right one together, because, a producer can hear what it's going to be when all the gloss and everything is put upon it. So sometimes I'll go, I really like this. And he'll go, yeah, but if you hear that frequency, it's going to cut into this, this, and this in the future that he's going to end up putting on there, a guitar, or maybe it's going to cut into the vocals a little bit and distract, or maybe the mid-range is a little bit where the bass guitar needs to sit. So we try something else. So it's definitely something you have to think about and agree on. But when I choose, snare drums, what gives them their character is what the shell's made out of, how heavy are the rims, and what is the size, how deep, how wide is it? And that changes everything. And there's sought after ones, like the 80s Tama Bell Brass, which I have somewhere in here. Ludwig, some of their early snares, like the Black Beauty and the Acrylites. There's certain snares that are sought after, and then certain ones that just surprise you. And for instance, Mike Fasano, who's teched with me for quite a few years on many different records, he gifted me a snare drum that we used for a lot of ballads on we've used it on all the records since Sound of Madness for more of the ballad type songs. And it's called the November Rain snare drum. Why is it called the November Rain? Because he has the actual one that was on November Rain, and he gave me his backup for the November Rain snare, and it sounds like November Rain, and it only sounds like that. It doesn't do anything else, but it's got that sound.
And so as a collector too, Barry, the original paint must be important, like you talked about with the other one behind you, like the first coat of that paint.
Yeah, the paint or the wrap, because some shows are wrapped with like a plastic wrap kind of thing, is important. And I like sparkles. I love sparkle kits. Like the Noble Cooley I wanted to get is a pink sparkle.
Oh yeah, that's
great. I got to get that. I love sparkles. But honestly, the way I look at drums and instruments in general, guitars, whatever, they're just a hammer. They're just a tool. It could be the ugliest thing on the planet, but you don't hear with your eyes. You hear with your ears. So some of the things you hit in the studio, you're like, where did that sound come from? Oh, that was a beer bottle that we were hitting with a pen under a microphone that we just made a little rhythm out of, and it sounded cool, right? Nobody's going to go, oh, I need that beer bottle, because you can get one anywhere. It's all about having fun in the studio and experimenting. I think when it comes to the pretty drums, that's more important for just you, and also for, now when I play shows, I'm proudly endorsed by Pearl Drums and have been for over 20 years. They want to put out their latest and greatest product, and I'm the representative for that. So it's going to be a really pretty drum kit.
Right.
That also sounds good. So that's, I think, where the look comes in. It's a personal preference, but it doesn't change the sound.
How many pieces do you take out with you on the road now? How big is the kit?
It looks bigger than what it really is. It's mostly just like a Bonham size kit. Bass drum, rack tom, 2 floor toms, snare drum, and then I have a little bit of side stuff, percussion, sample pads for different songs, tambourines, that kind of thing. And then I've added an extra bass drum to it that goes way off to the right. That's big. It's a big bass drum. It's 26 inches. Average size is a 20 or a 22. But I use that for like the ballads or when I want a little more impact. So I go between the two.
Well, what's interesting is on Symptom of Being Human, you don't really come in full force till 3:04 in the song or something like that. Like the drums don't come in till way later, but there's a lot of percussive instruments. So is that
Yeah.
is that sort of part of how, what the question I had for you? Did it start with the drums sooner, and then as you guys produced it, it came out, or was that the way it was intended? Do you remember?
It was intended that way. It started as an acoustic guitar and vocals.
Sounds like
initially.
that's the way. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like it was written with.
Yeah. So it started that way, and then I got to go back to my old college and high school days where it was played more like a symphony drummer would, where I'm playing an upright bass drum, then I overdub a snare drum. It's more that type of thing because it's not you're right, it's not a lot going on. It's more just kick and snare with a couple, and I actually did the symphonic crashes instead of a regular hit a crash with a stick. I enjoy doing those things. As much as I love to play drums and play drum kit, it's really nice to step back and be maybe a little bit more creative and get back to your roots.
Oh, you are. I mean, just from what I hear, there's you get to do a lot with this band in terms of. I mean, you get to completely rock out, and you get to do these, really sort of subtle, beautiful, sort of ballady fills that really sort of are underneath what's going on in the song. It's kind of great, man. I mean, you're certainly not limited. People might think Shinedown rock band, and that's what they do, but it's really not. I was listening to a few songs, and I mean this in the most complimentary way. With some production element changes, it could be a Taylor Swift. This could be a couple of Taylor Swift songs with those choruses, man. I mean, really,
Sure.
very, very sweet, singable, relatable choruses.
Yeah, I mean, we've never been a band that pigeonholes ourselves. Yes, we are technically a rock band, and we technically are put in that category, but we as musicians and as fans of music listen to everything. I'm not scared to say I love Lady Gaga. I think she's absolutely amazing, and I love her albums. I love her work. Or I'm gonna go listen to the old '90s hip hop, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg era because that stuff was great. It doesn't matter. Or I'm gonna go listen to Slipknot or Meshuggah, or I'm gonna go listen to Tony Williams, or I'm gonna listen to some jazz. If it's a good song, it's a good song, and that's what Shinedown does. We don't care what it turns out to be. If it sounds a little pop, great, it's a pop song. If it sounds a little country, well, that's what that song wanted to be.
We also never know what influence is going to come in. I mean, obviously you guys have written together for years now. You never know which thing is going to give it that little thing that makes it unique.
Correct, and it could be the oddest instrument or sound that triggers something. You're like, wait, what did you just do? And it's some guy fiddling on an acoustic or a mandolin.
I was gonna say, or a bass run, and you're like, wait a minute, that's a little funky. What if we did this instead? Yeah. What if we shuffled it a little?
Yeah, what was that cool little mandolin banjo thing you just did? Okay, well, we're gonna have to write around that. Awesome.
So you alluded to the fact that there's an album in the works, Barry. What's the plan for that? When can fans expect it?
I'm hoping sooner than later. I'd say we're about halfway through it. I've a couple weeks back went and recorded 6 songs for the record up at Eric's studio. Had a blast doing it. It's, as every Shinedown record, it's going to be different than the last, but it still sounds like us because you can't change Brent Smith's voice. His is such an iconic voice. But, we just write from what we know at the time. So that's what this one's going to be, like anything else. I would hope that we had some new music out, maybe a single later this year and an album early next year.
What about hot sauce?
Because you know your spice and flavor, what is it that makes
Yes.
a great hot sauce stand out from a good hot
Wait,
sauce?
before you answer that question, and I like that question, Jason. Very good question. Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
When did the hot sauce craze start for you, and when did you notice it was a thing?
I can answer both in that. So it started for me. My family is from the north. They're from Wisconsin. I grew up in Florida. So, they cooked very Midwestern meals, meat and potatoes. But then I started going to my friends' houses and they had hot sauce on the table. And I went, oh, what is this? This is amazing. So, it started with simple Tabasco, just being able to put that on my basic Midwestern food and wake it up a little bit. It created that addiction for me. And then it just expanded from there. I think what makes a great hot sauce is one that you like. It's like drinking a beer or drinking a cocktail. Some people say, oh, gin and tonic, that tastes like crap. Well, yeah, to some people love it. I think it's a mixture of really good flavor and a heat level that may be hot for some, but isn't crazy. I think sometimes it's kind of like, again, for a beer reference, The IPAs had gotten so crazy for a while there. They were like 10% alcohol, and they just were too much, just way too much. Same with hot sauce. You got these world's hottest pepper, Butjalika, Scorpion.
There was a competition to try to be the hottest, not the tastiest.
I don't want to drink mace. That's not fun. I want to have something that tastes good with some heat to it. So I think that's what makes a hot sauce.
Take a spoonful of wasabi if you want that.
Yeah, that's no fun. I mean, that just ruins your meal. And I've tried them, and there's been certain hot sauces where I've put it on my meal, and I'm like, well, now I'm crying, and I'm going to pay for it tomorrow morning as well. This is not fun.
So did somebody, the company involved in making the Shinedown hot sauce, did they know that you were a hot sauce fan, and that's how this all came to be?
Not initially. So they initially approached the label and said, hey, do you think of any of your, and the company we're talking about is called Torchbearer. Go check them out. They've got amazing hot sauces, even beyond the ones they did with us. They reached out to the label going, hey, do any of your bands maybe want to do this? And they approached Shinedown, and I went, oh, that's me all day long.
I'm your guy. I'm your Huckleberry.
I grow my own peppers. Yeah, I grow my own peppers. I make my own hot sauces at home. Let's do this. And Vid over at Torchbearer.
Wait a minute. Hold on, Bear. Just pump the brakes. When did you? Because there's a huge difference between being an aficionado and being a creator of your own hot sauce. When did you make the changeover? When did you start growing peppers? When did you decide I want to find my own formula that works for me?
I started growing peppers when I finally bought a house, probably 20 years ago. And I've always loved to garden. And here in Florida, gardens do well, but you have to be careful what you plant, because when finally the Florida summer comes, everything's dying. You're not growing anything aside from peppers. They just last through everything just about.
Aside from peppers.
But, you get such a great yield from a pepper plant. You can only eat so many of these things. So what do you got to do? You got to preserve them. So why not make peppers or pepper jam or pickle them? I love, pickled things. And I just like being in the kitchen. That's my passion outside of music, is just being in the kitchen and doing those things. I get it from, my father's big into it. My mother, we always had a meal. We sat at the table. That was I had a wonderful childhood growing up, and I try to carry that into my own family. And my daughter, we sit down for dinner still and talk about the day, and, the phones go away. All that crap's worthless. So, I got into it. And with Vid over at Torchbearer, he and I started talking and going, well, what do you like? Well, what do you like? What are you looking for? What am I looking for? And we just started honing down these ideas.
Was he amazed that you were that knowledgeable?
I think he was taken aback a little bit. Yeah.
I'll bet he was. He's like, whoa, you're making real conversation about this.
I think he was expecting to get rock starred. Like, yeah, whatever. Just put, give us something. We'll do that. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. I will never put my name or Shinedown's name on something that we were truly a part of. And so he started sending samples, and we started trying things and giving tasting notes and that type of thing for about 5-6 months. And then we finally narrowed it down to the 3 sauces that I really liked, that he really liked. And that's what we went with, Symptom being the first sauce to be released. And I know we're not talking too much about the other 2, but you guys have had the opportunity.
Oh, man, I've had all 3, and they are friggin' fantastic. Different, all different, but friggin' fantastic. The one we are talking about is Symptom. It's the Chipotle garlic one, which is great. It's not too hot. Yeah. It's not too hot at all. As a matter of fact, it's just extremely flavorful and delicious.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to release that one first because it is the mildest of the bunch, and it's more for everybody. This is a real deal. They're actually doing this. It's not just some crappy knockoff sauce, and it's got flavor. This gets me excited for the other 2, which are a little bit spicier and different profiles.
Devour was my wife's favorite. She usually doesn't like spicy hot things, but we sat down, we did the whole flavor thing on a couple of different meal options. We had the eggs, we actually did omelet with some veggies on it too.
Nice.
And she loved Devour because she thought the flavor profile for that one leaned heavily into something we love, which is like more of a Mexican flavor flair.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. Whereas the Chipotle garlic is a little bit more muted in that respect.
I also like the label. It looks like a record. It looks like one of your records. It's got it's a cool looking hot sauce if you have it on the table.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you want to look at. You want to study it.
It's really great.
All of us, when we were growing up, we had actual records, and we'd sit there and read and look at the vinyl,
But that's actually important because, you mentioned beer and some other things like beer, like the labels are so important to that like microbrew vibe. And now hot sauce kind of is the next microbrew. Like, how much effort did you put into what the look of the Shinedown brand sauce was going to be?
Quite a bit. I think initially we wanted it to definitely have our character, which is that TV guy. That was an important focal point. So let's do that. And then I think the first batch of artwork that came out was really kind of overly done with fire and hot. And it's like, hey, well, this first one is really not that hot.
Yeah.
You know? So it's kind of almost in a way false advertising. So we kind of honed it down, and Vid came back like, oh, I like that, but I'd like to see this, because it also has to represent Torchbearer, because they're part of it as well. So, you know, we want to make sure we give props to them and have absolutely their input, because they're the ones helping us distribute this and put it out there. So yeah, I'd say about 3 or 4 iterations of artwork. We have a great art team on our side, so it was a lot of fun.
What do you just? I mean, obviously, if you're like me, you put hot sauce on just about everything. But
yes,
what are your go-to things that you put hot sauce on? I mean, obviously, I'm an eggs and chicken guy. That's where I really, really like it. But
yeah, I've got an issue because it goes on just about everything. I mean, a whole half of my fridge is hot sauces, honestly. Definitely the breakfast morning eggs, absolutely, like a breakfast hash. I love it on that. Absolutely tacos, things like that. But then when you get into the super hot sauces, the hotter ones that maybe you're not just dumping on stuff, I love to mix them into like a soup or a gumbo or a stew. That way you use a little bit and it spreads through the whole thing, and then you get that perfect balance of the heat. So I use it on just about anything. I don't eat sweets, so I don't use it on sweets. But other than that, we're good.
You don't eat sweets at all?
No, I don't like sweets.
Me neither. Never been my thing.
Because after eating hot food, I need a little something at the end. Just a little sweet, just something. I mean, it could be a date. You know what I mean? Like I just need something.
Yeah, no, I'll go for like a piece of cheese or something to take that heat away.
Sure.
I've just never really enjoyed sweets that much. Maybe around Christmas, my father makes homemade pralines, and I'll have a couple of those because they're nostalgic. But I'd rather go to a bag of salty potato chips.
Are you an Indian food guy?
Love it. I'm actually making Indian food tonight
Nice.
for my family.
Because I mean that will definitely try you. They always go like,
Yes.
"What would you like, medium or spicy?" I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know who you are. Maybe medium is too hot. Maybe spicy. They're like, just let us know. I'm like, all right, let's go. And
I always go spicy, and they always look at me cross-eyed. I'm like, no,
like,
I'll be okay.
Are you sure? Are you sure, gringo, that you would like some hot sauce?
Thai restaurants do that too. Anytime I go to a Thai restaurant, I'm like, I'll take a Thai hot, and they're like, come on. And I'm like, no, I'll take it. Let's go.
I'm going to make a suggestion for the Symptom sauce, which people might push back on, but I put it on eggplant parm, and the garlic in there was amazing.
I bet that was delicious.
Amazing.
I have put it on like a pasta with meat sauce, and I enjoyed it that way, but I'm going to have to do that. I like eggplant parm, and I have some eggplants growing in my garden right now that'll be ready pretty soon.
Get those out before the summer sets in Florida.
That's it. I'm towards the end. My tomato plants are already dying.
Oh, man.
We've had a drought in North Florida, so it's been rough.
So listen, Bear, we got a listener question.
Yeah.
Which is not about hot sauces. It's a question people want to know. What do you say to those people who keep shouting that rock and roll is dead? Randy M wants to know.
Well, Randy, let me see. I played a show last weekend for 20,000 people, sold out, so it's not dead.
I was watching reels, and I forget who it was, but somebody said that the guy that was talking, I guess, was a music guy, and he's like a muso guy. He goes, "Listen, if ska's not dead, rock and roll's not dying."
Exactly. No.
I think if Randy M or anybody who just turns on the radio that they were familiar with in the 90s, and they're hearing the same artists that they heard in the 90s, because rock radio hasn't changed much, then they're going to think rock is dead. But if you go do the research and look out there, you're going to find plenty of rock bands today who are doing it and making it and doing it their own way, not the old label way.
Yeah, and you know what's fun is I've noticed probably in the last 4 or 5 years, and I think maybe the pandemic, the one good thing out of this is a lot of kids are starting to learn to play instruments again.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot of young teenagers. My neighbor is one of them that are putting bands together again, garage bands, and just playing music together. And I think it's super cool to see.
And how cool is it that some kid somewhere in the country is getting Modern Drummer with you in it, and they're gonna dream the same dream that you did? There's something really like cyclically awesome about that.
It's amazing. And anytime I get stopped by a young kid that is starting to play drums and says, "Hey man, you're my influence," it not only makes me really warm inside, but I take the time to spend time with them and say, "Yeah, keep playing. You know, I never thought I'd be here. Keep doing it. Keep playing." And I actually so we just played in Michigan last weekend as well at a place called Soaring Eagle Casino, and they started their outdoor summer concert series. And this guy who was working there came up to me during our rehearsals. He was working backstage area. And he said, "Hey, I know you're not going to remember me." And I didn't remember him. He says, "But when you guys first played here about 10 years ago, or not even 10 years ago, I think he said 6 years ago, he said I was 15 and I had a meet and greet with you and you told me to keep playing drums. And I said, awesome. Are you still playing? He said, I absolutely am.
Man.
So then I brought him into rehearsals and let him sit behind me while we rehearsed, just so he could watch.
What a treat!
That little thing will change somebody's life, and that, if I'm able to give back in any way, I'm absolutely going to.
Amazing. Barry Kerch, I have one final question for you, and it's sort of twofold that I think everybody should ask an artist. One is, what is the best way for fans of a band to support their music? Best way to buy music that supports the band? And then what's the best way for people to get the hot sauce?
Best way for fans to support the band these days is going to the show and buying their merch. If they have a CD at merch, if they have t-shirts at merch, we make the joke within our band that we're just glorified t-shirt salesmen at this point. Because, the system is very different now. You're not making the money off the records. Spotify and Apple, sorry guys, but you took it all from the artist, way to go. It's touring and selling that merch that pays the bands and pays the bills and keeps these lights on above my head for my family.
It's so interesting because it used to be back in the day when we were all kids that a tour would support an album, but now an album supports a tour.
Correct. And it's unfortunate, and we all know who those powers are, and hopefully some days it gets maybe broken apart a little bit. I think it's starting to happen, and I'm not going to say names, but I like to see that happening because it does need to be shaken up for the artists, because the artists are not being properly taken care of that are bringing you all this great music and talent. So that's sad, but it's going to get better. And look, I'm not suffering. I'm not starving. We're doing just fine, but it could be better for, especially it'd be really hard to be a new band these days.
Well, just, doing a short, 15 show, bar tour is expensive. I mean, you're not going to make a lot of money at the end of it.
No, because you got to pay for gas, mileage, food, your staff,
lodging,
if you're lucky enough to have a tech or two. I look at it with us, we have a staff of 30, 40 people at a time. That's buses and semis. Who pays for that? Yeah. These guys, the four of us.
Course. Yeah.
Gas is not exactly cheap right now.
And you become a family and you want to make sure that you keep them around. And so you want to, pay a fair price for their service. I mean, it's like.
Absolutely. They've got kids too. They've got families. Some of these men and women have been with us for up of 10, 15 years. Yeah. I know their family as good as I know my own.
They are, of course. Yeah. Yeah. It's all part of the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting industry. I never thought the business side is a lot more business than I ever thought it would be. I was the kid with the posters on the wall, I was like, oh, I'm just going to go be a rock star and this is going to be a great time. And it is, but it's a lot more work than people think when they first get into it.
But also to persevere like you guys have, I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of commitment. It just does. I mean, you might get lucky with a record or a song, but to have the kind of, quality longevity that you guys have had, it takes a lot.
And you guys know it with the acting industry, it's very similar. It's very cutthroat, and keeping your head there and keeping, people looking at you and inviting you to be part of another project. It's hard work.
Well, it doesn't get done by itself. Yeah, no, you don't just show up.
It takes a village, literally.
And then Barry, what about the hot sauce?
2 places. Go to shinedown.com, go to our merch section. You'll find a link to the hot sauces, and you'll also find some recipes that I actually wrote. They're from my kitchen.
Yeah.
So please enjoy those. I had a great time writing those. And then you can also go to Torchbearer's website. They have multi-packs. They have a pack, a mild one and a hot one that includes our sauce and then some of their sauces, which is really cool. So you try their sauces. It's amazing. They also have this garlic barbecue rub. It's like white colored. It's very garlicky. Fantastic on chicken and other things, but it's really good on grilled chicken. So yeah, go check them out and please get the sauce. It was a labor of love, and I'm really, really proud of it.
I was listening to him. I was going to go on and go, okay, what is his recipe? What is the hot sauce? While I'm talking, that's rude.
I really love the idea that he had, which is like put some in a stew or a gumbo. That's fucking delightful.
Terrific. But again, how much do you put in, right? My wife does a really delicious butternut squash. I mean, it's outstanding. And she puts spice in it.
Like a roasted squash?
Yeah, it's delicious. And sometimes it's a little too spicy for my daughter, and that works out great for me because then I get it all. Like, oh, Maya doesn't like it. You can have it all. I'm like, great.
I didn't share the story on this one, but I did that thing once at a Thai restaurant where the waiter said, "You want it spicy?" I said, "Sure, I can do it spicy." And then they just watched me in total pain trying to make through the dish because I refused. Yes, I was sweating. I refused to give in. My wife and I were like going on a date afterwards, like see a show or something like that, and I couldn't even. I had to go home afterwards. I was such a sweaty, hot mess, but I got through it.
It's great. I mean, I've had some Indian and Thai food where I'm friggin' dying. Can I have some more water, please?
I have yet to hit the super hot Indian food. I don't know. It's a spice that doesn't hit me the same as like.
Well, you have to leave. You have to leave Mansfield to do so.
Hey, I got some big cities around here. We got Mansfield. We got. We got Boston. We got Providence.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lovely in there. As a matter of fact, hopefully people will send us. Come to this Indian restaurant. We've got the spiciest masala there is.
I love some naan too. So if anybody wants to send us some naan,
is that what it is? That's it. We're now pitching to be sent stuff.
That's right.
Yeah, just bricks of cash would be good as well. Fucking guy. But yeah, I listened to a lot of the Shinedown music, and I was really surprised by how accessible. Like I was expecting more of a System of a Down thing. But it wasn't. It was very, very accessible, and his voice is fantastic, and they sound great, and they make amazing hot sauce. So thank you all for listening.
Music by Denny Nucci, produced and edited by the same two people you heard hosting this show because they have no friends.